She ignored me for years, not with anger, not with harsh words, but with silence. And I learned that silence can hurt more than shouting ever could. For a long time, I told myself she was just busy. Life happens, people grow, children move on. That is what I kept saying to my heart whenever it felt heavy. I remember the first year she stopped calling. I waited by the phone. I told myself, tomorrow. Tomorrow came, then another tomorrow, and slowly the days turned into years. Still, I waited. I never asked why she stopped caring. I never demanded answers. I only hoped. Because hope is something a parent never fully loses. And then one day, after all those years, she wanted me back. But by then, I was not the same person she had left behind. Before everything changed, our relationship was simple, warm, familiar. She was once the center of my world. I planned my days around her needs, my worries around her future. I remember her laughter filling the house, her voice calling my name from another room. Those small sounds that make a house feel alive. I was always there. For the good days. For the bad ones. For the quiet nights when she needed comfort, but did not know how to ask. When she grew older, life began to pull her in different directions. New people, new dreams, new priorities. I understood that. Or at least, I tried to. At first, the distance was small, shorter calls, quicker replies, less time together. I told myself this was normal, that love does not disappear, it just changes shape. But then came the silence. Days passed without messages, weeks without calls, months without a single, "How are you?" I replayed old conversations in my head. I wondered if I had said something wrong, if I had asked for too much, if I had loved too deeply. Still, I never complained. I believed that one day she would remember me, that she would realize I was still here, waiting. Life became quieter after that. The house felt bigger than it really was. Meals felt longer, evenings felt heavier. I found myself talking to memories instead of people, sitting in the same chair, looking at the same door, hoping it would open. Years passed like this, quietly, slowly. I learned how to live with absence, how to smile without expecting anything back, how to carry love without showing it. And just when I had accepted that this was how life would be, just when I stopped waiting, she came back. Not softly, not carefully. She came back like time had not passed, like the silence never existed, like I was supposed to be the same. That was when I realized something important. Being ignored does not only create distance, it changes you. And love, when left alone for too long, learns how to protect itself. When she came back into my life, she did not start with an apology. She started with small talk. She asked how I was. She asked about my health. She spoke as if the years of silence were just a small break, something that did not need explaining. At first, I answered politely. I smiled when I spoke. I told myself not to reopen old wounds, but inside something felt unsettled. She began calling more often. Not every day, but enough to remind me of what I had once lost. Her voice sounded familiar, yet distant, like a place I used to live in but no longer belonged to. She spoke about her life, her struggles, her regrets. I listened. That was always my role. Sometimes she would say, "I've been so busy, life got complicated." I nodded, even when she could not see me. I told myself not to judge, but my heart remembered every unanswered call. She started visiting occasionally. She would walk into my home like she used to. She would sit in the same chair, but something was different. She did not notice the small changes in me, the slower steps, the quieter voice. She spoke about rebuilding our relationship, about starting fresh. I wanted to believe her. I truly did, but trust does not return as easily as love. There were moments when old feelings resurfaced, a shared laugh, a familiar look, a memory that made my chest ache. Then, just as suddenly, she would disappear again. Days without messages, silence without explanation. Each time the pain returned softer but deeper. Not sharp enough to cry, just heavy enough to feel. I realized she wanted comfort, not connection. She wanted the safety of my presence, not the responsibility of staying. One evening, she said something that stayed with me. "I knew you'd understand," she said. Those words made me pause, because understanding had cost me years of waiting, years of silence. I began noticing patterns. She came when she needed support. She left when her life felt full again. I never said no. I never closed the door. But something inside me started to shift. I felt tired. Not physically, emotionally. I began questioning my own boundaries. How much absence was I supposed to forgive? How many times was I expected to pretend nothing happened? At night, I lay awake thinking about the past, about the person I used to be, the one who waited without asking why. I was no longer that person. The conflict was not between us anymore. It was inside me, between the love that never left and the pain that never healed. And I knew, deep down, that a moment was coming when I would have to choose between reopening old wounds or finally protecting my heart. The moment that changed everything did not come with shouting. It came quietly, like most painful truths do. One evening, she came to see me after a long silence. She looked tired, not the kind of tired that comes from work, but the kind that comes from carrying too much inside. She sat across from me at the table. The same table where I had eaten alone for years. She spoke slowly, choosing her words carefully. "I need your help," she said. I waited. She told me about her life falling apart, about people leaving, about feeling alone. As she spoke, I listened. But something inside me felt strangely distant. She wasn't here because she missed me. She was here because she needed me. Then she said something that broke the last piece of silence between us. "I always knew you'd be there," she said softly. Those words settled heavy in my chest, not because they were unkind, but because they were honest in a way she did not realize. I thought about all the nights I waited, all the calls I never received, all the birthdays and small moments she missed. I realized then that she never wondered if I would be okay without her. She assumed my love would always wait. For the first time, I did not rush to comfort her. I did not promise anything. I looked at her and said quietly, "I was here. You just weren't." She looked surprised. Not angry, just confused. She had never heard me speak like that before. I continued, slowly. "I didn't stop loving you. I just learned how to live without waiting." The room fell silent. Not an uncomfortable silence. An honest one. Her eyes filled, but she did not cry. She nodded slightly. "I didn't realize how much time passed," she said. Time. That word again. Time had changed me. Time had taught me that love without balance becomes pain. She asked if we could start over, if we could pretend nothing happened. That was when I knew the truth. I could not go back. I could move forward, but not the way she wanted. That night after she left, I sat alone at the table. I did not feel angry. I did not feel broken. I felt clear. I understood that being needed is not the same as being loved, and love that only returns in moments of crisis is not something I could carry anymore. That was the turning point. Not when she came back, but when I finally chose myself. After that night, something inside me settled. Not because everything was fixed, but because I finally understood where I stood. For the first time in many years, I stopped feeling guilty for protecting my heart. I did not shut her out. I did not disappear the way she once did. I simply changed the way I showed up. I answered her calls, but I did not wait by the phone. I listened, but I did not lose myself in her problems. I cared, but I no longer carried everything alone. At first, this new distance felt strange. I was so used to giving without limits that boundaries felt like coldness. But they were not. They were quiet acts of self-respect. She noticed the change. She asked why I sounded different, why I was calmer, why I no longer rushed to fix things for her. I told her the truth. Softly. "I learned how to live without waiting," I said. She did not argue. She did not defend herself. She listened. That was new. Slowly our conversations became more honest. Not frequent, not intense, just real. Sometimes she apologized, not in long speeches, just simple words. "I didn't mean to disappear," she said once. I believed her, and I also believed that intentions do not erase impact. I forgave her, not because she asked perfectly, not because time demanded it, but because holding on to old pain was no longer serving me. Forgiveness did not mean returning to who I was before. It meant letting go of the anger I no longer needed. I spent more time with myself. I rebuilt small routines, morning walks, quiet tea breaks, evenings without expectation. I found comfort in simple things. A clean room, a familiar song, the sound of rain against the window. I stopped measuring my worth by how often someone needed me, and something unexpected happened. She began showing up differently too, not perfectly, not consistently, but with more awareness. She asked how I was and waited for the answer. She remembered small details. She stayed present a little longer each time. There were still gaps, still silences, but they no longer felt like abandonment. They felt like pauses. I understood that relationships do not always return the way we imagine. Sometimes they return softer, smaller, more fragile. And sometimes that is enough. One afternoon, she sat beside me quietly. No long talks, no requests, just presence. She said, "I didn't know you learned how to be strong without me." I smiled, not proudly, just peacefully. "I didn't either," I said. That was when I realized healing does not always come with big moments or emotional speeches. Sometimes it comes when you stop waiting to be chosen and start choosing yourself. I no longer feared being forgotten because I had remembered myself. Now, when I look back on everything, I no longer see just the pain. I see the lessons I did not know I was learning at the time. I used to believe that love meant always being available, always waiting, always forgiving without question. But life taught me something gentler and wiser. Love does not disappear when you set boundaries. It simply learns how to exist in a healthier way. I still care. I still answer when she calls. I still listen when she needs to speak. But I no longer measure my worth by how often I'm remembered. There are days when silence returns. And that is okay. It no longer feels like rejection. It feels like space. I fill that space with my own life now, with quiet mornings, with peaceful evenings, with moments that belong only to me. Sometimes I sit by the window and think about the years I spent waiting. I do not regret loving deeply. I only wish I had learned sooner that love should never cost you your peace. When she comes, I welcome her. When she leaves, I let her go. There is no fear in that anymore. I have learned that people return not always because they understand what they lost, but because they feel the emptiness of their own absence. And that is not something I need to fix. If she stays, I am grateful. If she goes, I am still whole. That understanding brought me a calm I had never known before. I tell this story for those who are still waiting, for those who keep hoping that silence will one day turn into love again. I want you to know this. Your love is not invisible, but it should never be the only thing holding you together. You are allowed to grow. You are allowed to protect your heart. You are allowed to be more than someone's safe place. Love is strongest when it is shared freely, not when it is expected to endure neglect. And if someone returns after a long absence, it is okay to welcome them with kindness and still keep your boundaries intact, because choosing yourself does not mean you love others less. It means you finally love yourself enough. Final moral love should never require you to disappear. If someone ignores you for years and returns, you can forgive without forgetting, care without waiting, and love without losing yourself. That is not selfishness. That is wisdom.